The state of Tennessee has a history regarding exonerations and wrongful convictions. In the midst of the disturbed American justice system, Tennessee has experienced numerous issues regarding exoneration. For instance, there has been problems regarding inadequate legal representation, racial bias, forensic practices, and procedures. Due to this, there have been many wrongful convictions in the state of Tennessee. Furthermore, this illustrates how the flaws within the system have ultimately led to the wrongful imprisonment of citizens and have limited efforts to help enhance the equality of the legal system. Racial bias, on the other hand, has been evidenced all throughout Tennessee's history, which has led to many wrongful convictions. Exonerated individuals, specifically African Americans, tend to be convicted based on racial bias, as societal norms in the 1900s segregated people based on race. For example, African Americans in Tennessee were wrongfully convicted and sentenced due to the biases within the judicial system. This legal racism has not only been seen in local cases, but capital cases as well. In order to bring awareness to these cases, advocacy organizations like the Innocence Project have revealed these injustices and have shown the need for unbiased legal standards. Ultimately, the understanding racial bias in wrongful convictions is important as we need to make a change within the U.S. judicial system. Faulty forensic evidence also plays a role in wrongful convictions, as in several cases, forensics were tampered. For example, the method of hair analysis and DNA were unreliable in earlier decades, and they did not have scientific backing. These unreliable evidence was the deciding factor in many convicting individuals, which is why they were wrongfully sentenced, but later exonerated. In examining these cases, Tennessee law enforcement has recognized the need for more investment in forensic science. As a result, the state has started reforms to ensure that the only reliable evidence used in trials to prevent injustice. Also, the lack of formal legal representation has been an issue for the wrongfully convicted, as they were not provided proper representation, especially minorities. Wrongfully convicted individuals were assigned public defenders that typically had heavy caseloads and limited resources, which prevented them from being able to accurately defend these individuals. These overworked attorneys often found themselves unable to manage their time and devote themselves to one's case, as they had multiple cases at a time. For example, the Lawrence McKinney case, where he spent over 3 decades in prison for a crime he did not commit. This highlights the consequences of the lack of legal representation. In response to such cases, the state of Tennessee has begun to strengthen public defender resources to ensure this fair legal representation. In recent years, Tennessee has even taken steps to address wrongful convictions and advocate for the exonerated innocence of individuals. Organizations had formed to bring awareness to this issue, such as the Tennessee Innocence Project. They have worked so hard to investigate potential cases of wrongful conviction so they can help provide legal assistance to those in need. Through the use of DNA testing, eyewitnesses, and public awareness, these organizations have been able to successfully overturn multiple wrongful convictions. Tennessee's legislature has acted in an effort to minimize wrongful convictions by creating new policies, such as mandating record interrogations and changing identification procedures. These efforts have contributed to the improvement of the process and have helped build public defenders in the fairness of Tennessee's justice system. In conclusion, the history of exonerations and wrongful convictions within the state of Tennessee reveal the flaws within the judicial system. Racial bias, faulty forensic evidence, and lack of formal representation are what leads to wrongful conviction. The state has put into place new laws to help improve the system, and not only just improve it, but stop this injustice. In 1992, a 26-year-old man from Brenham, Texas, with no record of violence, spent 18 years in jail. This is a story of Anthony Charles Graves, who was a victim of wrongful conviction. Graves was wrongfully convicted for supposedly taking part in a mass murder in Somerville, Texas. This was a tragedy that struck national news as 6 people were brutally murdered. The law enforcement's key witnesses that put Graves behind bars was Robert Carter, who was involved in the murders and during interrogation put Graves at the crime scene due to his police pressure and tension. Afterwards, Carter restated that Graves was innocent, but despite this, the prosecutor, Charles Sebesta, continued with the case using faulty testimony. This led to Graves and Carter's being sentenced in 1994. Throughout the trial, Graves maintained his innocence, even though his files for appeals were denied. The tension was high during this time on death row, as he spent 12 years in solitary confinement and was scheduled for execution twice. The federal appeals process eventually intervened in 2006 when the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned his conviction. However, it still took 4 more years of legal battles until Graves was officially exonerated in 2010. A new prosecutor was finally assigned to review the Graves case, found that later he was innocent and all charges were dropped. One major aspect of the Graves case is the role that Sebesta played, him being the district attorney who oversaw the trial. Sebesta withheld evidence that would have proven Graves' innocence, but manipulated witnesses in the courtroom to secure Graves' conviction. Carter had initially named Graves at the scene of the crime, but then denied it and stated that he'd been lying on multiple occasions. But he was later ignored and executed in 2000. Despite this, Sebesta continued forward with the death penalty sentence. Later in 2015, Sebesta was removed and let go due to his unethical and manipulation tactics he used in the courtroom. After his release, Anthony Charles Graves spent the rest of his life devoted to criminal justice reform. Later, he established the Anthony Graves Foundation. This organization supports and advocates for victims of wrongful conviction. Graves now speaks on the issues within the criminal justice system, highlighting the capital punishment and prosecutorial accountability. Also, he works with other organizations, including the Innocence Project and the ACLU, to bring awareness to how the system can fail. Graves' story is a wake-up call for our government to fix the errors within the criminal justice system. Through his 18 years of wrongful imprisonment and conviction, it has revealed the need for a greater oversight in cases involving the death penalty. Today, Anthony Charles Graves remains as an inspiration to others, as he motivates people to stand up and make a change within the criminal justice system.